Welcome back. This is part 2 of getting my 65 Impala ready for Rocky Mountain Race Week 2023. In the last episode of this, working on this car, you saw that we were getting ready to put a 12 bolt in it. We put in a kill switch for the battery that's in the trunk. We fixed backup lights, turn signals, and that kind of thing, because those are required for race week, not just racing, because in race week your car has to be a legal street car. So with this one, I'm going to change out the horns. I got to put a dry shaft loop in. We got to get that 12 bolt in the car and get the old 10 bolt out of the car. I got longer wheel studs for the 12 bolt. I also have drag radials and stuff like that. So pay attention as we get going on this. So why do we have the Impala's butt jacked up way so high? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to get the rear end out of it. This 10 bolt's got to go. Make room for the 12 bolt standing right behind me on the floor. There it is. And the first thing we got to do is get it way up in the air so we can drop it way down to get it out, make it easier to get out. But I got to jack the rear end back up, because it's dangling by the springs. I got to get the pressure off the shocks in order to get those off, and the panhard bar, and let me show you everything else. So this is what it looks like underneath the 65 Impala. One that's been modified, obviously. That is not a stock panhard bar, it's an adjustable one. That's from UMI. The sway bar is a Hellwig style sway bar, and I don't remember where I got it. It's been so long ago. And this is the 10 bolt. It's an 8.2 inch. It's got to come out. I got to get the Coney adjustable shocks off. Now, jacking up this thing is not as easy as you think with that sway bar in the way. It's a pain in the butt with the sway bar in the way, because you really can't get a hook underneath here and trying to jack it up underneath the front of the differential. It makes it want to slide, this jack slide, so it's not fun. So and you really can't jack it up by the sway bar either, because that's a good way to bend it. Okay, in the process of taking the 10 bolt out of the car, I took the backing plates off, the brakes off, the backing plates with the brakes off. I got these backing plates out of the storage unit because they were originally on that. So what I'm doing is I'm reusing the original backing plates that were on the car and the whole brake system, actually. And I pulled the axles out, because you got to pull the axles out to get those off. So everything was going pretty good underneath the car. See, the 10 bolt is pretty much out of the car. It's just sitting here on jack stands. See? Then I ran into one bolt that didn't want to come out, and that's how I got it out, having to use that. So I had to hacksaw it. Now what happened was the steel sleeve, the bolt rusted inside the steel sleeve there, and I had to cut it off. All the rest of the bolts came out nice and easy. So what to do, amazingly, I had an extra one of these bolts. I can't believe I did, but actually had an extra one of these bolts lying around, which is 5/8 fine thread. You don't find that at your local True Value very much. And I'm about to slide the rear end out. But I got to solve this problem here. I don't have a steel sleeve anymore. I tried drilling it. It was a disaster. Hammering it out was a disaster. So I decided to do something different. Watch this. So I have this here, and I was wondering what to use, so I got out my calipers here and find out it's so it's about 882, which is about 3/4 of an inch. I found this is a piece of water pipe, all right, 1/2 inch water pipe. The bolt fits inside of it, and it's a little smaller. It is like 856. So Yeah, so it's pretty close. So it should fit in the space where that sleeve went for the bushing. Wish me luck. First thing I'm going to do is cut the threaded end off the pipe and cut it back to here. And then I need about 2.5 inches, so I'll have to make 2 cuts. See, it's not perfect by any sense, but it'll work. Okay, there we go. There we go. That was gonna happen. Okay, I got the axles back in. You can see the C-clip eliminators in there for my light being out of the way. And over there, and the pin in the middle is in, which is held in with this, where's the bolt? The bolt's down there. Okay. So, I should go to C-clip eliminators, but Moser's telling me that C-clip eliminators are aluminum on theirs, and they don't like hard cornering. So, probably just going to go to disc brakes. So what I'm doing here, is I'm tightening the set screw on the differential cover here, and what this does is it puts pressure on the back of the bearing cap for the differential, and it acts as a support. And then helps to keep when you're under load, the bearing wants to push away from the bearing cap wants to push away from the bearing and come off. This type of differential cover, like this aluminum one, like that, is there to help support it, and the aluminum cover also helps dissipate heat. So I'm going to do this one as well. You don't have to have it super tight. You're not trying to crush the bearings cap. You just want it to keep it from flexing is all. And the nuts is like a set screw. So there we go. This might be a problem here. Now the suspension's at full droop right now. I had to, with the, I gotta hook up that last shock, but with the panhard bar on, and if it goes up on the weight and it hits that, then I might have to space it out down there at the end on the panhard bar to get it away from this, which wouldn't be such a big a deal. I mean, I could space it out maybe ½ an inch or so. We'll see what happens. I gotta get it back on the wheels to see what's going on. Okay, the sway bar is now in. I still have to take the drive shaft out, and I got to change the U-joint. That is a 1350 to 1310 U-joint, and I have a 1350 yoke that's got to go on the 12 bolt from Strange Engineering. So I got to take that out. I got to take the drive shaft out and change it, because when I had American Powertrain made me that drive shaft with the kit for the T56, and I hadn't specifically made it for a 1350 U-joint for this specific purpose. That way I can, but I've been running a 10 bolt in it, so I changed it out to the 13, you know, the conversion U-joint is what they call it. Yeah, I've been working off camera. I've been working on the drive shaft loop, and I figure I'm going to probably put it here, which gives it pretty close to the drive shaft loop. The rules are it's supposed to be within 6 inches, so of the front U-joint. So, and I've cut it down. See, I cut the end off, that way it would fit on the, see how this floor does this kind of like transition here. And so I cut the end off a little bit. I cut about 2 inches off of it, which means I'm going to probably drill 2 more holes here. And then I cut some of the pieces. See if you can get in here. I cut the L-shaped bracket down here, so when it's all the way up against the floor, flat against the floor, the L-shaped bracket's not hitting the exhaust. So, like that. And then I got the 12 bolts all the way in. The last step I needed to do on the 12 bolt was put in the Strange, can you see, because there's so much light from outside here. It's a Strange billet steel pinion yoke that I put in, and then obviously I filled it with fluid. The pinion yoke is it's one of those billet ones from Strange. It did not want to go on the Richmond gear pinion for some reason. So a triangular file going over the splines in order to get the transition to go on was kind of like a 2-hour ordeal. But she's on now. The rest of the rear end's in the car. She's filled up with fluids. And then I haven't put the drive shaft in yet because I've been pulling it in and out, working it on this. So I'm going to continue working on this. Excuse me. Allergies are kicking my butt. It's June. Up top, you can see where the 4 bolts are on each side. Underneath the carpet here. So, and then underneath we got the dry shaft loop in down here. It's all bolted together, bolted through the floor. Again, it wasn't something I wanted to do, but hey, it's what we have to do for racing. And the drive shaft's back in. I loosened up the exhaust on the driver's side and twisted it so it has a little more room between the dry shaft loop and the exhaust pipe. That way it doesn't rattle together. That's more than enough room in there because the engine's not going to rotate it that much. So this is the passenger door. I have the window regulator out of it. I just took it out, and you can see the problem is that some of the teeth have been knocked off. This is in the upper rolled all the way up position. So it's been a fight to get it to come down. Once it's down like 1.5 inches or an inch or so, then it rolls up and down fine. But going up the last inch or getting it to go down that first inch was a disaster. So Classic Industries I got a new one from Classic Industries, and I'm going to try to put it in without screaming and yelling and cutting my fingers off. Here's the new one. So now I got to fish it in through these holes in the door, and then get the wheels on the end to the tracks. There's a lower track that's hidden back here that I have out, and get the wheels in that, and then bolt all the bolts in. Let's see if I can do it. So I got the door panel back on. The window regulator is in. Look at this. It goes all the way up. All the way up. No fight. No grabbing teeth. Look at that. Nice. And my hands, look. My arms aren't bloody. My hands didn't fall. I didn't have the window regulator fall on my hand and pinch it and cut it up. Nope, my arms are all bloody from being inside the door through the stamped steel holes. On to the next project. Alright, I'm doing about 80 miles an hour. Pulling about 12 inches of vacuum. But I'm running in the mid-15s for AFRs, which is kind of lean. With fuel injection, I wouldn't care so much, but with a carburetor, I don't know. One of the last pieces of the puzzle for race week is a parking brake that actually functions. Since we're going to be driving on mountain roads and I have a stick shift transmission, I would like a parking brake that works. I sandblasted and painted these I don't know how long ago. And the new I bought a new cable because I accidentally threw away the cable to this instead of the old long bed cable to my GMC before I converted it to a short bed. I still got to adjust it a little bit more. The rear end is now all the way in with the new billet steel pinion yoke. I had to change the U-joint back into a 1350 U-joint instead of the old adapter one, which was 1350 to 1310. Took it for a drive. Drove it 250 miles yesterday. It was running a little bit lean on the highway, but it didn't seem to care. But I had the windows down. A truck blew by me. The air pressure blew a lot of the insulation right off the roof of the car. The old insulation that's up there above the headliner. There's crap of it all over the interior. Here's a big pile of it I just pulled out. There's a chunk still in the back window back there by the speaker I need to get. And I got to vacuum the interior out again. Yeah, the dry shaft loop is in, all bolted together. It's a bolt-in style. That way I can take it back out if I want to. And after the test drive, the dry shaft does not hit it, which is a plus. What else we got going on? Still got to figure out why it's leaking oil. That's like over several weeks of driving, so I don't know what it is. It's probably the valve covers. Okay, here are the drag radials. I had these in my storage unit, and I used them a few years back. Actually bought them and put them on the car. Drove it for like 8 months with these on there, and then put Cooper Cobras on it. But I didn't want to put, so I ended up, I was at a Cars and Coffee at Speedway Motors, and I wrote, oh yeah, I'll buy a set of wheels. I've been looking for a used set of wheels, just a pair of wheels, so I could throw these drag radials on, 15x8s. And I couldn't find anything anywhere. Either people wanted like near new prices for old wheels, or they're like so old they're junky, and or you know they're like 500 miles away. So I ended up buying these. These are like $80 from Speedway. It's kind of cool as I got a dual bolt pattern on them, so I can throw these drag radials on my Galaxy if I want to, and go drag racing on the Galaxy if I ever get that thing running. So now that I got the drag radials on, I got the rear end in, I got the dry shaft loop in. Really, the only thing I really like to do is kind of, oh yeah, I also put the window regulator in. Yeah, so I got a window regulator in on the passenger, so I can roll up my window and roll down my window without having to fight and not spend 20 minutes going each way, which is very convenient at a track, because they really do have sticklers about having your windows up when you go to the track. So anyway, I got that done. The only thing else I really want to do is I want to get my gas gauge fixed. Now, I really don't need it. I mean, really, if you're driving in groups, you stop 100 miles. This car will go over 100 miles in a gas stop. It'll go like 200 miles. So, but it's nice to have a gas gauge. It kind of functions. I mean, when it's full, it's reading just below a half a tank, and that's if you fill it to the gas cap. Which is what I do when I road trip. When it's empty, well, when it reads empty, it's still got some gas in it. So it's kind of reads between just below a half a tank down to empty, and then that's about all it does. Which tells me there's like, and if you unplug the gas, the feed line from the gas gauge, from the sending unit, the gas gauge goes to full, which means the gas gauge still works. So if it didn't move at all, then the gas gauge would be screwed up. Which, if it's reading mostly near empty, it kind of means that it's the negative. The ground is somehow interfering with the feed wire. Sometimes it's just the sending unit. I did replace the sending unit, and it didn't seem to fix anything. It's exactly the same. I checked the wiring all the way from the trunk all the way up to the fuse box. So it's got to be the gauge, and I think possibly when the back of the gauge got all soaking wet, I took it to a car wash and water just poured in down over the back of the gauges, and it hasn't worked since. So I think that somehow that the gas gauge is it's kind of getting a signal from the ground side of the gas gauge to the feed wire, and it's not reading correctly. So I got to figure that out. And the way to do that is I got to pull the whole gauge cluster out, which if you ever done one on a 65 Impala, it sucks, and I'll show you why. Here we are on the car, and here's my gas gauge. Now you can see I filled it up the other day, and it only driven it a few miles, but let me turn the key on, see what happens. Yeah. So it's kind of reading there, and it's probably closer to 3/4 of a tank than a quarter of a tank. So in order to get the gauge cluster out, I got to first remove the radio. And the gauge cluster goes from there all the way across to there. But to get this off, I have to take the whole metal bezel all the way across, including the glove box. Which means I got to take the glove box liner out, unscrew this the entire way, drop the steering column down, tilt this all forward and pull it out. Because the bottom of the speedometer, in the middle of the speedometer, there's like a U shape, like this part down there at the bottom, where the bottom of the gear is at, and it catches on the dashboard down here if you try to pull it out. So you got to tilt everything all the way forward, which also take the tack and the AFR gauge off the column. It's like an all-day affair to pull it out, and I might replace the speedometer. As you can see, my speedometer is stuck. Or it needs to be lubed or something. I don't know. It only goes, I'm doing 80 miles an hour, and the fastest this thing will get up to is like 45 on the speedometer. And it really just kind of sits there. Sometimes you tap on it, it'll go down. I don't know. But anyway, I have another speedometer I could throw in it. Or I need to lube this one up or clean the gum. It's obviously gummed up. So, new speedo cable and everything to the transmission's on there too. So, anyhow, oh, I did put in new kick panel lights, or not kick under lights. I just use these LED strip ones. They're much brighter and they use a lot less electricity than the original ones. The Super Sports didn't have an original overhead dome light in the middle, right there, where the brace is. You can always put one in if you want, but it had them in the sail panels. See, there's one there and one there, and then it had them underneath the dash, and then it has one that shines out the back of the console. And so I once put in this thing here. It's like a battery operated deal. The batteries are probably long dead since this thing was sitting in storage for 5 years. As if I ever needed a map light type of deal, so I just pushed that on. But I should probably pull that off. It's only held on with Velcro. See? Put new batteries in it. On to the next project. I will probably make a decision on this in the next day or so. The other thing I couldn't stand any longer on my Impala was my dented header panel. My poor car's been hit 5 times in the front. Somehow managing to always hit the grill, the header panel, and the fenders. The front end's now built out of 4 cars. It's like the 3rd header panel that I put in, and it got creamed again. And that was probably 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And the hood's never really shut right since then. And I've had a couple of spare header panels lying around. And I thought, you know what, the hell with it, I'll put one in. I have one that's primered up, and it's been repainted once, it's been fixed once, and I'm gonna sandblast it and see what I get. And you know, I mean, it doesn't like it has to be straight. I mean, look at the rest of the car; it ain't straight. It's got rust everywhere. So I just want a hood. I just want a header panel that will allow the hood to shut, right? You know. And is not completely caved in over by the one headlight too. So I'm going to try to do that next, because I just can't stand that any longer. It's not necessary for race week, but I'm going to do it. I lived in Los Angeles from 1999 to 2013, and this poor car had been hit 5 times. So like every 3 years it got hit. And it was all, except 4 of the times it was up on the front. The original front fender got smacked twice. The original header panel, which I'll show you in a minute, I have to get it out of the rafters, got hit basically in the exact same position. I had to replace that. And then somebody turned left and tried to turn left on me in front of me and stopped, and I basically dragged her car all the way down the side of my car. Her insurance company paid for the fixing of that, but there's a lot of Bondo in there. So... but it's straight now, but there's still rust is forming back in the quarters and the bottom of the fenders and such. But this is bothering me, and it's been like this for over 10 years, and frankly I'm tired of looking at it. So I've had this header panel here This one that I just sandblasted today, it was originally red. And when I was sandblasting, I noticed that it had four layers or 5 layers. I primed it red. I put some primer on it because I originally wanted to have like the emblem that goes across here. I wanted to remove that, but now I want it. Changed my mind. You can see where we welded up the holes there and there, and so those will be easy to drill back out when I put the emblem on. What I discovered was that this had been repainted at one time, because it was my primer, paint, primer, another like paint, and then the original black primer. There's a tiny bit left down there. And what I discovered is I also discovered some body filler. What I thought was just thick paint that was cracking was actually filler that was cracking. You can see the dents here. Yeah, they filled it all in with filler. And I can understand why you thought, well, why didn't you just hammer that out? Well, there's a brace that goes on the back side of this brace here. Goes all the way over to here, basically covering all that, so you can't get to the back of it with a hammer and dolly. But this will allow me, because this is not smashed in up here, it'll allow me to get the grill straightened back out and the piece above it. And frankly, that's what's really irritating me about the whole thing, is that this big dent, and then it's causing the grill to be popped out, because when this pushed in, this went from being like this to like that. So I'll show you with the hood open. Let me get a light. There's a light. Now I tried straightening out the bottom part down there, and it leveled it. Basically, it's supposed to be basically flat, like a table almost, and was pointing way down here. And in order to get the header panel off, there's only 6 bolts. There's 2 in the middle on the hood latch, and then 2 on each end, or even 1 on each end. But the other problem is it's attached to the grill by rivets. So down there, there are rivets down there that you got to get if you want to remove that without having to remove the entire grill and a lot of the rest of the car. So what I'm going to do is, oh yeah, and you got to take these nuts off to remove. You have to remove the headlight eyebrows, which also got tweaked on this one. I think I could bend it back once it's unbolted from the header panel, and then the header panel should come off. Now that's why I borrowed the little belt sander there to take out the rivets between the grill and the header panel down there. Here's the original header panel that was on the car. You can see that's where it got smacked. One of the accidents that I had. This is what the car's color looked like when I bought it. You can see that it looks like they sanded the paint off or something. And down to the primer. And that's the original Evening Orchid that was behind the emblems up there. So the whole car looked like that when I bought it. But that was one of the accidents that I had. This happened on Melrose Avenue in West Hollywood, where a lady in a Range Rover who happened to be on the cell phone was backing up without looking. Yep. And this was here when I bought the car. It obviously got smacked here. This is often a damage point on 65 Impalas because it's the leading edge of the car. It's the first thing. It hangs over the bumper, and it gets smacked all the time. That's why often you see these blunted on 65s. This one here, the peak is still pretty good. It's nice. It's never been hit there, but it got hit there. This one here got tapped. Got a little bit of a love tap here, but it's also got dings and dents. So I'm just going to paint this for right now. There's another dent right there, you can see. So it did get a love tap there, which folded that up. So I'm going to use self-etch primer on it. Because I'm just going to rattle can this. If it was a nicer shape, I'd paint it correctly. But this is just self-etch from SEM. Part number 696 or 39673. We use this a lot at work, and it's a self-etch. It's not cheap. It's like 30 bucks a can now. Thank you. Look at this. Two car header panels, two different accidents, basically getting hit in the exact same place. That's annoying. That's really annoying. You have to realize that this accident here happened exactly about a year after I replaced all this stuff on the front clip. The fenders are from another car. That header panel with the grill came out of another car. And see, the fenders were originally turquoise, and the header panel was originally tan. You can see over here, there's like a tan, this hideous tan killer. That's why the car ended up being black, because the car had turquoise fenders and a tan header panel, and the rest of the car would look like that on the right. And I, instead of having a zebra car, I just started rattle canning it black. What you see here is a result of a 2008 paint job that me and John McGann did. He's now at Hot Rod Magazine. He runs Hot Rod Magazine now. He's like the senior editor there. We painted this car in 2008 on 4th of July when I was hanging out at the Hot Rod shop one night. He was working on his boss's car at the time. And we found a can of, this is Eastwood's Rat Rod Black. I don't know if they make it anymore. It's a single stage. And we found a can on the shelf, and we decided to scuff the car up and paint it. Because it had that typical rattle can zebra look to it, because it was never even. And we took the mirrors off, took the taillights off, taped up the rest of the car, scuffed it with Scotch-Brites, and then shot it. And it's lasted this long. I mean, I have to say, I mean, the paint is starting to peel off everywhere now, but considering we spent exactly probably 45 minutes prepping the car, the paint's finally starting to come off. That was 14 years ago, so I can't complain too much. There's some of the original where I guess we didn't scuff it enough because it's pretty smooth underneath there. I can't complain much at all. Okay, we got the self-etch primer dry. Although it has a nice semi-gloss look to it now, matches the paint kind of. Fortunately, this self-etch does not have any UV protectant in it at all. It wouldn't last very long in direct sunlight. I'm going to paint the backside with the self-etch, but I'm not going to paint that because it never gets in the sun. So we're going to shoot it with, I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum's semi-gloss black. Found this at Menards. Rust-Oleum engine paint, engine enamel. I have a couple of cans of these lying around, so I might as well use them. Here is the car without a header panel. Looks a little funny, don't it? I had to take off these braces to get it out. I got to straighten one of them. It's bent pretty bad from the accident. The one that was sitting right back here. And I'm going to try to straighten out this eyebrow a bit. And this part of the grill, I'm going to try to see if I can tweak it back. It's pretty flexible, actually. And then I'm going to push this section out here. You can see the eyebrow got tweaked a little bit. So I might take it completely off and try to fit it to the new header panel so it fits better. It's got some dust in it. You can see. That's what I get for painting in a garage with the fans running, but heater on. It's still wet because it's glossy, but as you can see with gloss black, it shows every imperfection. Oh, when gloss is black. When this dries to a semi-gloss or flat, you'll as much as gloss black shows everything, flat black hides everything. See, it's a little bit of a weirdness going on there too. But look at that. You can see this is where you can actually see where they tried to fix this dent over here before. It looks like they tried to pull it, because those look like where they tried to pull the dent, and then they just covered all that crap with Bondo to hide it all. You can see the 4 holes that I welded up, which I'll probably end up drilling out. Put the emblems back on. And you can see the dent there. Well, this will look better than my mangled one, or my severely dented one here. Look at that. Washer's back together, and the hood is on. Nice thing is, it doesn't pop up at the back, though my panel gap is like really tight here, a little bit wide down here, and then all of a sudden it gets really tight right there. I think this is just bent. This gap looks pretty good, and that gap looks pretty good going across there, and then it gets a little tighter up, but anyway. Did you know that horns used to have a high and a low note, even though these look identical? One's high, one's low. These are out of a 1954 Cadillac. Listen to this. High and low. Got the new Cadillac horns in. Let's see what they sound like. Sound pretty good. Alright, thanks for watching. Well, there's more stuff to be coming. I still got to do a gas gauge. So, we'll see what happens. Welcome back. This is part 2 of getting this car running and ready. That's all, folks.